Hey guys, in this video I want to talk to you about very small magnets and how you can use them during the construction of a kit such as the Shadowsword here that will allow you to build the various different versions of the model without limiting yourself to just one of them. So this particular model here started life out as a Baneblade, but I found the additional sprue to convert it to a Shadowsword. And again, during this, I thought, which one do I pick? I want to pick all of them, so that's what I did. So these parts that aren't undercoated, they've all been magnetized. So in this video, I want to show you where I've hidden those magnets. I also want to show you how you can magnetize your own models, because there's a couple of tips and tricks that hopefully it's not arrogant for me to say I've picked up along the way, and it's made my life a little bit easier. So I want to share that with you guys as well. So let me swap this out with what you'll need to get started. So what you're going to need, firstly, and it probably come as no surprise, is some magnets. Now, the ones I'm using here, they are 2mm in diameter, 1mm thick. I've got them from eBay. They're very easily available. And just as a bit of a tip, I've sellotaped or sticky taped them to a piece of paper, because then you can use the knife just to cut away the bits that you need, and I've found that they don't go missing that way. You're also going to need a sharp hobby knife. It doesn't really matter what, but that's quite useful for holding the magnets. Pin vices, pin drills, and obviously the drill bits to go alongside it. I've got a 2mm drill bit here, and I've also got one that is very, very small for sort of normally the pinning work, but it can be useful for magnets as well. Super glue to stick the magnets in place, and as a bit of an optional extra, some bright coloured paint, which I'll come to in a second. So with these magnets, let me just go and get a couple of parts that I know I need to magnetize on this Shadowsword, right, which is the sort of main gun housing and the actual the main sort of hull part. So at the moment, and I'll cover this a little bit more, but I've cut away this sort of back section here, right? So it kind of slides in place, but there's a little bit of wiggle. So maybe I want to try and magnetize some of these areas. So let me have a quick look. What could that bit up there? Now, I mean, in all fairness, I'm doing this for the video because that sits in here pretty nicely as it is, right? But I'm thinking if we stick a magnet up the top here, sorry, make sure it's in focus. Right, if we get a magnet up the top here, that can then magnetize in the back there. So the reason I've got two different size pin vices or drill bits is the larger drill bits do have a habit of going a bit off center, right? So if you've very carefully worked out the middle of this section, I would use the smaller drill bit just to do a bit of a pilot hole, right? So let's just make sure that's a bit centered. I'm doing it by eye here. It might not be the best thing, but So I don't need to put a massive or a very deep hole in this model. I just need to have something in there to center the larger drill bit, right? There we are. So this is the same diameter as the magnets, which is obviously quite important. We don't need to drill very far. These magnets are 1mm deep. So really, considering the end of the drill bit is a bit tapered, you're looking to drill out maybe 1.5 mil of the plastic here. Right, we want it sitting as flush as possible. Right, let me just do that. I need a little bit more. I'm doing it by eye, really. That should be enough. Should be enough. All right, so now we've got that hole drilled, we can go to one of our first magnets. So this is why the paper is quite useful, right? And the sellotape or the sticky tape. Right, so I'm just going to kind of position my knife in between one of those, and there we go. I can take it out. Hopefully I get it in focus. There we are. So this is why the hobby knife comes in really useful, because not only can it obviously cut the sellotape and get one of the magnets out, but the magnet is now stuck to this, which makes the next step even easier. So I'm going to grab my budget brand super glue here, put that down because it looks like the lid's stuck. There we are. Right, and I'm just going to add the tiniest drop of glue to this. There we go. Right. So it doesn't really matter when you're first doing this which way the polarity is facing, right? Provided you always carry on with that, this first one to dictate the rest. So I'm just going to quickly put it in here and use the knife to push it in as flush as possible, right? So if you've got a knife like that where the sharp end is really the only bit at the top there, that's ideal because then your fingers are nowhere near the sharp blade. Now this here, let me get this in focus again. Right, it's not sitting as flush as I would like it. So maybe I've got a little bit more time. Push in, marginally better maybe, but it might be that I just didn't drill out enough. So there we go, bit of a noob here. But that might work in our favour considering where this is going to be. So obviously if you need it flush because the model won't sit right, then you just got to make sure you drill out a little bit more. With this, it's going to be somewhat hidden, so it's not going to make much of a difference. So now I want to make sure that the second hole I drill is in the right place. Right, so this is where the paint comes in. Now it doesn't matter what colour you're using so long as it's bright and you can spot it. Right, but the idea is to get sort of a blob of this. Right. Throw it on the magnet. Right, he says. Probably need a little bit more than that. I want it protruding a fair amount, I suppose, just in case. Right, that'll probably do. Right, doesn't have to be perfect. So theoretically, when I slide this into the model here and push it in, make sure it touches. Yeah, there we go. Right, so that's where my hole needs to be. Perfect. So now I'm going to go back to my smallest drill bit. Put that there. You don't need the paint to dry, really. Not unless you really care for your drill bits. Right, just put that pilot hole in. And then get the larger drill to make sure it's in the right place. Right, I'll try and drill a little bit more than I did last time. Not deep enough. I'll be safe than sorry. That should be fine. So the next bit involves the scalpel again. And let me just get rid of this paint. We don't want that now. It's in the way. That'll do. So we're going to grab another magnet. There we go. Now, to make sure the polarity is right, I'm going to allow it to stick to that. Right, so we know which direction it needs to face. Now we can get the blade and slowly slide it between the two. Right, or slide it off onto the blade. So now we know which way round the polarity needs to be and what side needs the super glue. Right. So I'm going to come back to this now that my super glue is towards the end of the nozzle. Right, just add a little bit there. Now this is not the easiest thing now. Right, you can see I've attempted it before. I now need to push that straight in and then slide the blade away. But the problem is I've got this lipped area that is not going to make this very easy at all. So let's try. Now either it's behind the blade or it's under my thumb. What are we reckoning? Oh, there we go. Right, it's in there. And before the glue dries, I'm going to quickly use the end of this, just try and push that in. Beautiful. So now, if I made sure it's right, there we go. That's in there, and it's not coming out. So that's how I use the magnets to link all of these things together. If you get it on the end of a blade with the hole pre-drilled, you can just push down on top of that, slide it away, and yeah, bish bash bosh, job done. So let me show you where I've hidden the magnets on the rest of the tank now, if it helps anyone else doing the same thing. So first things first, the barrel, this isn't magnetized, right? This particular kit, these things fit in pretty nicely as they are, right? So don't worry about it too much. Once you've undercoated those, there's no issues there. So they're not magnetized. This bit, we've just seen the magnet being put into the top, but also just to reiterate, I've cut away this section here so it can slide over this little bit here. Let's just slide straight over. As for the housing, right, pull that up. We've got two magnets, one here and one here. And then this plate in front, there's a magnet there, which obviously connects to that bit of the housing. But because it needs to be reused in the other version, there's a magnet the other side. So this can actually flip in reverse. The rest of it, this model is pretty useful because of the space inside. I can get all the other bits out. So if it's everything, and I didn't glue those in apparently either. So these are the sections that, oh no, it's a lie.
I lied.
That's not glued in. That actually isn't magnetized because it fits quite nicely with that section in front of it. Right? So these are the bits that are actually glued in place. That's the only thing I've done, and I've stuck in some sprues running along, obviously here, just to hold the parts of the model up because we haven't got glue to rely on to keep this model in one piece. So to build, obviously, the other version with the sort of firing position at the back, that panel that was the front section like that can now be flipped over, and there's a magnet right in the middle. There's another barrel in there. It's the gift that keeps on giving, right? So there's a magnet there that will just go straight in like that and extend the deck. The other bits can actually fit inside. So it was, if memory serves, that magnet that was the first one done, right? Because that magnet determined the polarity of that one, which in turn determined the polarity on this piece, and so on and so forth. So it's useful when you're doing that start from one end of the model and work forward. Otherwise, you get to the point where you're trying to mash two north-facing magnets together and it's not going to work. So that's that deck.
But with Schaefer's dick sealant, my dick stays a nice golden brown colour. Who wouldn't want a golden dick?
Then we've got this bit. So again, once I had these magnets in place, I could then put the magnet in the front here. So that then goes like that. This bit, this Vulcan Megabolter, it's not magnetized because I think it fits fairly nicely in there as it is. And obviously a point of reference for this particular model, there are two versions of this this front section, and I've opted with the one that obviously accommodates the Vulcan Megabolter because in all fairness, once that bit's in, I don't think it makes much difference, not really. Right. So there's your Vulcan Megabolter. And then the last bit are these little gun shields. Right. So each one, I've added a small piece of sprue to the underside because this is so thin, I couldn't get a magnet in there. So that's just plastic glue holding that in place. So there's a magnet in the middle and there's a magnet at the left-hand side. And then obviously one up here as well. So the idea, this is quite neat, I think. You put the middle one in, then you can just slide it in place like that. And it's that really satisfying click when it goes in. And then we've got the two gunners who I could magnetize under their boots if I really wanted to, but they're at the moment just freestanding. So that is how I have magnetized a Shadowsword into whatever this is called.
A Storm Lord.
Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, you found it useful. If you have, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel because it really helps me out, and I will see you in the next one.